Right, so to begin with, you're going to need to find or look up an image of either a piece of fruit or a vegetable that is round, because we are going to try and create volume and mass using cross contour lines in addition to shading. So I'm choosing to do an apple, and I want to make sure that the apple that I select has a distinctive light source, that there is a clear form shadow and a rather long cast shadow too. Make sure that whatever object you choose, that you do have those things. So a clear light source, form shadow, cast shadow, highlight. I am doing this on good white drawing paper. If you came to pick up your supplies, you should have a few sheets of white paper there. And there is kind of a textury side that you want to look for. That's the best side to really shade on, because it kind of helps whenever you put your pencil stroke down. It's got that texture, so it sticks really nicely. So you can see I'm drawing fairly light, and I'm getting a kind of a hatched outline. So it's not just one long line, and it's not too heavy, and it's not perfect. And I'm just trying to get down that shape of the apple, and there's that little indent. I've decided on an apple, but you could really do any kind of fruit or vegetable that's round. So a persimmon could work, a tomato would work, a pear could work too, even a potato or a pumpkin. So there's all these choices that you could do or you could look up. But whatever you decide on, just make sure you have good lighting on that object. Now my camera is positioned a little bit high here, so you can't quite see that I'm drawing in the cast shadow, but that's what I'm doing. You can see it a little bit more clearly there, that the cast shadow is taking shape. But I'm not going heavy and I'm not going thick with that outline. I'm letting it be light and rather loose, kind of gestural. And I was doing that with only the yellow Ticonderoga pencil. It's not yellow colored pencil, it's just yellow on the outside, just to be clear. So I'm going in there and I'm shading, kind of tilting my pencil at an angle. And look how far back I'm holding that pencil. Ridiculously far back. That's how most artists position their pencil when they draw. So I'm starting off doing something called toning. So that's so that you kind of cancel out the white of the paper and you give the paper a tone. The only place I'm not going to tone is right where the highlight is going to be. That way I don't have to erase it out later. So to tone, you can see I've hatched. I'm hatching all one way with my stroke. And I want it to be in the light to mid-tone range. I wouldn't want to tone really dark, not at this stage. Remember, it's always easier to erase up light shading than it is to erase heavy dark shading. The light's actually coming from the left side. So I have to make sure that I don't go too dark on that left side, that I will eventually start to get the form shadow in there. And that's sort of what I'm playing with. I'm playing with the in-between areas that are not quite form shadow yet. They're darker midtones. But I'm going to go after those form shadows and cast shadows next. So that is a form shadow that I'm putting in there. As that stem part kind of suctions in, it moves away from the light, so it's creating a form shadow there. Now the stem itself will create a cast shadow as it casts a shadow onto the apple. So when we're doing shading on here, the deal is you want to think about contour lines and hatching. So curving your lines, your stroke, around the object. So I want you to keep in mind those two lessons before. The first one is the sphere that we took, and you put hatching and cross hatching and wrapped it around the sphere, and you had a light area, mid-tone area, form shadow, and then the cast shadow underneath the object. So I want you to think about that, but I also want you to think about the cross contour line exercises that we've been doing, where the whole latitude and longitude thing. Because you really do want to curve your line to wrap it around that sphere, that ball shape. So on that right side, the lines kind of curve to the right, and on the left, they curve the other direction. Now you can hatch them too, so they can go more than one direction and overlap. You just want to make sure that your form shadow is darker than the midtones. And usually I start out with the shadow first, but not on this. I'm building it up differently. Take your time on it. Really think about each stroke, helping to articulate volume. Okay, I'm going to speed this up for you so you can see it in time lapse. Not sure if you caught that, but I'm starting to use the blending stump in some places. Now there is a danger because you don't want to eliminate all those beautiful cross contour and hatch marks and cross hatch marks. You want those to show through, but it can kind of help with that idea of mass to use a little bit. And if you watch, I'm actually using it just the same way I was using the pencil. So instead of doing circles or ovals, I'm trying to mimic the stroke so it still kind of wraps around the form too. And then I'm planning to go over that and kind of redefine some of those lines after I'm done with the blending stump. And I was debating whether or not to use it, but I thought I should. Just a little bit. I think it does help. And I'm not using it everywhere. I didn't put any in the form shadow. I did on the cast shadow that you can kind of see on the outer rim. It's kind of fading out. Just make sure like on your cast shadow that it does that kind of ombre effect where it's really dark right directly underneath your object. And then as it moves away from the object, it starts to fade out. And you can see me going back in and adding a few more lines because those lines are kind of interesting and they're helping the form on this type of drawing. So really picture those contour lines are stretching in the middle of the apple, getting tighter as they go towards the edges of that apple. When you are just about done, make sure you ask yourself, are there at least 7 values present on that apple? And are there some values within the cast shadow too? There should be 3 at a minimum within the cast shadow.